All right, so moving on with lesson 5. This is should be a review because we've talked a lot about square roots already. So this should go super quick. Okay, so the first question here, decide if it's true or false. There's 5 questions. Why don't you take about a minute? Just put a little T or F by them if you think they are true or false. Those 5 things. All right. Could have probably given you a little hint there, but I'm guessing you probably did just fine. Just something I want to point out to you. Yeah, so let's say we had the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, or the square root of 2 squared. Okay, so square root of 2 times square root of 2, what do you think that is? And we haven't even talked about this. Yeah.
The number that's squared.
Yeah, so you'd get square root of 4, which is 2. So if you ever see a square root and a square, those two things basically cancel out and you get whatever number is inside of there. Okay, the square and the square root, they're doing the exact opposite things to each other. So the square root of 5 times the square root of 5 would be the square root of 25, which is 5. Again, the square and the square root just cancel each other out. That one is true. So if you look at that, the square and the square root just cancel each other out. I should get 9. I have a 3 there, so that one's false. Again, the square root of 9 times square root of 9, you can look at that as a square root of 81, which is not 3. How about this one? True? False. Be the square root of 100, which should be 10. What's the square root of 16? 4. Now that one they kind of threw you a curveball. The other ones they've been writing square root of 16 equals 4. I mean, if they would have showed you that, you probably would have known.
2 is 4, then 4 times 2 is 8. What?
Yeah, it's got nothing to do with 4 times 2. 2 squared is 4. Square root of 16 is 4. There's no times 2. Times 2 and squaring are completely different things.
Right. What? 2 to the second power. So
2 squared is 4. 2 times 2. 4. That's it. You don't take it times 2 again. That means 2 times 2. Okay. Next one is kind of what we did on the warm-up today. Where should this thing go? Okay, between what 2 whole numbers does it lie? So again, if you just make a list of the perfect squares, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared, 9, 4 squared, the common ones we talked about. Where would square root of 7 be between what 2 numbers? That means between 1 and 2. That means between 1 and 4, between 2 and 3, and so on. Between 2 and 3, why? Well, because 7 would go right between 4 and 9. All right, you could probably be a little more exact and say it's closer to 3 maybe, but it's not asking us that. It just says between what 2 numbers does the square root of 7 lie. And then you could type in the square root of 7 and figure it out, okay? But we shouldn't need to do that. Why don't you try 2, 3, and 4? Same type of questions. Between what 2 numbers does it lie? Jonas got the first one? Between what? 16 and 25. Between 4 and 5. Because 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, so 23 is between those two numbers. Remember, I want these, I don't want the squared portion of that. Georgia, how about the square root of 50?
Between 7 and 8.
Yeah, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, so 50 is between there. Last one, Evan?
9 minutes.
Between 9 and 10, between 81 and 100. Questions on that? The Are You Ready is talking about a similar topic. It says square root of 12, we know it's between 3 or 4. Can we explain a way to figure out if it's closer to 3.1 or 3.9? So this one is really close to being in the middle. 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 12 is almost perfectly in the middle there. So what number is in the middle of 3.1 and 3.9 that we could probably check? 3.5. So somebody that's got a calculator handy, why don't we just square 3.5? Maybe that'll give us a better, what's that? 12.25. So do you think the square root of 12 is going to be closer on the left side of this, closer to 3.1, or more than this and be closer to 3.9? Why?
Because it would have to go down.
Yeah, it has to go down because 12.25 is 3.5. So it's certainly less than that. So I'm going to underline 3.1 and basically use that as my reference. Question number 3, again, very similar to what we just did today. On the warm-up, plotting those points. Why don't you see if you can put those 4 things on the number line. Just kind of a helpful hint, x squared equals 3, so you're not plotting 3. What are you plotting?
Square root of
The square root of 3. You want to plot x, not x squared. The opposite of squaring is to square root. So square root of 3 is going to be the first thing you plot. Then we got our first negative there as well. All right. Autumn, give me one of them. Tell me where to plot it.
The square root of 3, so x squared equals 3. Between the 1 and the 2, I put it a little closer to the 1.
A little closer to 1, somewhere in here.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to label that x and the square root of 3. 2 squared is 4, it has to be less than 4. Yes? Yeah, 5 squared is 25, so a little more than that. Z, and that would be the square root of 30. Sophia? Yeah, correct. Square root of 16 is 4. And how about this one? The first time having a negative. Brenna, what do you think?
I put it between negative
Closer which way?
and closer to negative 1.
Closer to negative 1. So square root of 1 would, of course, be 1. Now we're on the negative side. Square root of 2 just a tad more, so it's further to the left. Any questions on those? All right. Good summary there for you if you have trouble plotting any of them. Looking at the homework. Question 1, pretty self-explanatory. You need to explain how they know that. How do you know that it goes between those numbers? Question number 2, plotting. Pretty easy. Question number 3, you pick any 2 square roots you want and plot them on there. Question number 4, review what irrational numbers are. You're just circling the ones that are irrational. Question number 5, what is the exact side length of the shaded square? Okay, so how are you going to go about figuring out one of the side lengths? Lots of triangles there you can use to help you figure that out. Question number 6, again, scientific notation there. So let's change that one. And I'm going to give you a challenge problem. Nope. I just want to make sure it'll work out here. Nope, that's not what I want. So this is going to be the first one that you've seen where you haven't had to figure out the longest side. So using that formula, I want you to see if you can get a leg. We haven't solved one like that yet. So just out of curiosity, see if you can get that. If you use a formula, I think you can get it. And the final question, don't forget number 7. Again, just talking to you about slope. Remember, outliers would be things that are farther away than everything else on that scattered plot. So that is it for today.